Hello, all you awesome real estate agents out there. I keep getting asked the same questions over and over again, so I'm going to address this here right now. It's about CMAs, market analysis. How do I establish the value for my clients for their property? And so, before I get into this, and I know based on the heading of this video, you're interested, how do I do a CMA, a comparative market analysis, or sometimes I've heard it called a competitive market analysis. So I'm going to get into that. But before we do, I want to really overemphasize some very, very important things. Number one is it's not your job to come up with the value of the property. Your job is to provide your clients with facts and information so that they can make a decision on how to price their home. Write that down. Make it a PowerPoint slide if you need to as part of your presentation. So what you should be doing, number one, if you have not attended the Floyd Wickman course, you're doing a massive disservice to yourself. Find out when the next course is and then take it. Number two is what we learn in the course is this. You never talk about pricing until they're sold on you and your company first. And if you look at your onboarding checklist that we provided you with at Century 21 in our office, we provided you with a PowerPoint presentation that is customized to you and your office and your company. And we provided you with a video on what to say and do with that presentation. So everything is really completely laid out there for you. So when you go through that on your own and you study it, and the reason why it's recorded is so that you can review it over and over and over again. Some people say, well, why don't you have a class on it, a live class? Well, the problem is the live class will only bring it to your attention. And these days, when you have a live class, half the people are looking at their cell phone, checking text messages back and forth while you're having the class, and they're missing out on key points. And there's no repetition. Repetition is the mother of all learning. So without a video and without it being available at 10 o'clock at night when you want to have time to study it, or 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever you want to study it, and without being able to do it repeatedly, it's going to be really difficult for you to retain and learn that information. So what we provided you is very powerful, and it's worth a lot. So take advantage of the PowerPoint, take advantage of the video training, and repeatedly go through it over and over again. And if you have questions about it, please reach out to me. Don't complain to other people about stuff. It just drives me nuts. People complain to the people that can't do anything to help them. If you have a question about something, ask the source so they could do something about it for you. It's another one of my frustrations in managing real estate agents and managing real estate offices. All right, now, in the presentation, it specifically talks about you and your company, and then when you're done, you ask the question, if we can agree on price, would you hire me and my company to handle the sale? And they're going to say yes or no. If they say no, and they give you, and then you're going to ask why, and they're going to give you an objection, and then your job is to handle the objection. This is not an objection handling seminar right now. This is a seminar on how to do CMAs, right? So get plugged into some courses on how to handle objections. Go online to the Floyd Wickman course and buy the Dialogue Dictionary. Go online to Century 21's website. In the training aspect of it, there are tons of scripts and dialogues out there to learn and internalize. Go to the sessions that the manager in our office has, the team leader in our office has weekly sessions on role playing. Learn how to handle objections. The only thing standing in the way between you and your next commission is you knowing what to say and how to say it. You knowing your objection handling techniques. So if they say to me, yeah, you know what, John, I know we're going to get into price in a minute, but you had asked about, if we would hire you, if we could agree on price, and I'm not so sure we would. And I'd say, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What are your thoughts? Well, you mentioned that you put a sign in front of the property, and we don't want a sign. So we're more apt to list with an agent who will allow us to not have a sign. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm so glad we talked about that. So if we didn't put a sign in front of the house and we could agree on price, would you list with me? And they would say, yes, we would. I said, okay, great. Now, I didn't even handle the objection about whether they should or shouldn't put a sign in front of the house. You see, the average agent would never ask and just go into the market analysis and say, okay, call me if you'd like to hire me. It's horrible. You're not helping people doing that, and you're certainly not helping yourself. You have to narrow it down and find out what objections they have and overcome them. So if they say, yeah, I handle the sign objection in another way, and I say, okay, and if you take the course, you'll learn how to handle that objection. I'm not going to get into that stuff right now. If you want to have a separate conversation about objection handling, you can watch my other videos, take the Floyd Wickman course, take the Century 21 training and the Accelerate course. There's so much information out there for you to take advantage of, and a lot of it is free. And certainly you can always call me and we can have an objection handling session if you'd like. The bottom line is we want to get to the point where they say yes. So Floyd Wickman says, never talk about price until they agree to list with you first. Until they agree on working with you and your company, never talk about price, because and this is my own dialogue that I use, and I say this to clients, and I say this when I'm coaching agents individually. You as a homeowner have two jobs. You have to pick an agent and you have to pick a price. These two things do not belong together. They are separate decisions. So what we're going to focus on first is we're going to focus on you hiring an agent, and that will be me and my company. And I'm going to handle any objections or concerns or thoughts or questions that you have about that today and now. Then we're going to get into pricing. So first, I'm going to provide you with facts and information to hire the right agent to get the job done, right? And then we're going to talk about pricing, and you're going to pick a price for your property. The two don't have anything to do together. You would never hire an agent based on the price they gave you, because that could be an opinion of value. You want to hire an agent based on what they're going to do to get your home sold. So I'm here to tell you, real estate agents who are watching this video, people are not hiring you because you came up with the most accurate price. And, this is November of 2020. There's very low inventory out there right now. Many times we try to do a market analysis and we don't have the comparable properties available to us to do an accurate market analysis. It's a problem. It's an issue. So let's get into the CMA part now. Before I get into it, I have to preface it with some facts and information. Number one, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's 2020. We have low inventory. We probably will for the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years. Who knows when this is going to end? So normally in the past, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when we do a market analysis, we do it very much like an appraiser would do it. And by the way, we're having appraisal issues right now because of the facts and information I'm about to tell you. The issues are we're lacking data. So an appraisal is taking information from the past, putting it all together to predict the future or the present, which is now what the value of the property is worth today. But if I'm taking comparable properties that sold 2 to 3 months ago and I want to establish a value today, well, what if real estate goes up? Well, it's worth more. What if real estate goes down? Well, it's worth less. So it's a prediction. It's not an accurate 100% solid fact. I've had properties that I've had professionally appraised, paid thousands of dollars for the appraisals, on commercial property and whatnot. We put it on at that price that the appraiser recommended, didn't sell. Just because an appraisal worked out to a certain price doesn't mean that is what it's going to sell for. But what we're trying to establish, and feel me when I say this now, we're trying to establish a range of value, not an actual number. Okay? So establishing a range, it's a ballpark, right? It's a ballpark pricing. So what we'll do is we're going to find 3 to 5 homes that closely resemble your property. And the way we used to do it is we would do this and we would find homes that have sold in the last 3 months that are exactly like your house. So if you have an 8-room, 4-bedroom contemporary home, we would compare your property to other 8-room contemporary homes that sold in your neighborhood in the last 3 months. Well, there hasn't been a home that has sold in your neighborhood in the last 9 months or 12 months, never mind a contemporary style home. So where are we going to get this information? So, we have to use a different approach. Again, if you're watching this well beyond 2020, you basically, what you do is you take, by the way, take an appraisal course, take a seminar on how to do appraisals. if you really want to get to the nitty gritty of it. But to simplify it, and I explain to homeowners, I said, listen, my business, my industry is very, very simple. It's a lot of hard work, which very few people are willing to do, but it's very simple. In order to establish value on a property, I'm going to sum it all up right now for you all. Here's the mystery solved. You take 3 homes that have sold that are similar to your house. You compare your home to each one of those properties to compare if your home is worth more or less than each one, and you come up with an average. And that's what approximately the range that your home should sell for. It's literally that simple. And by the way, real estate agents, we all have access to the same information. So no one real estate agent's market analysis, if all 3 of them are doing it accurately, all 3 of them should be pretty much within that range. And I'm going to say something else to all of you real estate professionals out there that are watching this video, is that the homeowner has a really good idea of what they think their property is worth. Some of their opinions and ideas may be misguided. Some of them may be accurate. Some of them may not be accurate. But they all have an idea in mind. And one of the questions you always want to ask is, what do you feel the property is worth? How did you arrive at that price? Why do you want to sell it for this price? And sometimes, I'd say 1 out of 5 people will say, well, that's why I'm asking you. You tell me what it's worth, and they won't tell you what price they have in mind. Another way to ask them at that point is to say, well, what are homes like yours selling for in this area? You must know. You have, you should know more than I do. It's your house. Don't think they're not looking at the internet all the time, looking to see what the value of their home is worth. So, and then I say to them, listen, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm going to use facts and information. Doesn't matter what I think the home is worth. Well, I'm going to look at some sold properties in your town, and we're going to compare those sold properties to your property, and we're going to establish a value based on that. And here's the thing, you get to pick the price. There are 3 things that get a home sold. They all begin with the letter P. The first one is the presentation, how you stage the home for sale is going to be really important. Number 2 is the pricing of the property, and you get to pick the pricing. And number 3 is the promotion. Myself and my company at Century 21, we control the promotion. And we have systems in place to literally market your home worldwide. No one has a better platform and a system for marketing and merchandising your property better than we do. So we've nailed that down. We have the details in regard to the promotion. If the home is not selling, you can't blame it on me because I'm doing all the things that I need to do to get the home properly marketed and sold. If we decide to list our home together. If the property is not selling, and it's not my fault, it can only be the fault of the other 2 things. Either the presentation of the property, you need to better stage the property, or it's the pricing. It can only be one of those 2 things. Let's say you stage the property beautifully, get all the proper colors and furniture in place. You've hired us at Century 21. I'm doing everything anyone could ever possibly do to effectively merchandise your home. And if it's still not selling, it's because you have the pricing is too high. Let's say the price is, and by the way, it's always the price. It's always the price that prevents it from selling. If, let's say, you don't want to stage it and you want to sell it as is and it's not selling, well, then we need to adjust the price. It's never the fault of the agent if the agent is doing the proper marketing. Okay? And that's a separate class. Let's get back to the CMA. What I want to bring to your attention is I want you to go to MLS and notice there are 2 CMA classes that you need to take. I don't care if you've been in real estate for 30 years or 30 days. You need to take these classes. It's really important. I've not taken these classes, so I'm just going to tell you what I do personally, and you're probably going to learn things in these classes that you could teach me about. And I want you to take these classes. It's important. This one here is Pinergy's CMA. This class will focus on Pinergy's CMA tool to perform comparative market analysis for a property and customize its final CMA package. Please note that this session will not be focused on how to select the best comps for a CMA. Okay? Then, bear with me. That's a 2-hour class. And then there's another one that's a 1-hour class. It says this webinar will demonstrate using Pinergy CMA tool to perform a comparative market analysis for a property and customize its final CMA package. Please note that this session will not be focused on how to select the best comps for a CMA. So check out those 2 courses, pick the one that's best for you, register for them, and take them, okay? Now, in your onboarding checklist at Century 21 Metro West, there is a video in there on how to set up and adjust the settings for your CMA so that it looks really neat. So I go to options and settings, and I walk through the background color, the border color, what to choose, your logo, your font, your photo, how to get text on every page of the market analysis, and all that good stuff. Okay, so here's what I do when I'm coming up with helping a client establish what they should put their property on the market for. I'm going to give you the details now. The way that it works is we need to come up with a ballpark idea of what the value of your property is. So, in order to do that, we need to come up with some details, some facts, some information to help you make a decision of what you're going to choose for a price. So you've decided to work with me and my company. Great. Now let's get into the pricing. Remember, don't fall into the trap of talking about you and your company. Then you go into the CMA and then you say, okay, here, and then you create this packet and then you give it to them and then you go away. And you wait for them to call you when they don't. They end up hiring one of your competitors. And you don't know why. It's because you didn't follow the process. That's why. You didn't get them sold on you and your company first before you talked about price. You didn't get an agreement on you and your company first before you started talking about price. And then you didn't get an agreement on price. And by the way, once they've made those 2 decisions, you're done. And then the next logical step is to say, when can we order the photographer? When can we get the photographer to come into your house? When can we get the sign put in the yard? How soon? Great. Here's the paperwork. And by the way, 13 out of the last 14 properties that I've listed and put under agreement, I've never visited the property. I did everything via Zoom. Everything via Zoom. And all 14 of those properties are under agreement or have already closed already. So you don't have to physically go to someone's house. And what I've learned is the homeowners, they really don't care. They're totally fine with it. They're totally fine with you not physically going to the house. So here's what I do. I go through the listing presentation, which you have a copy of in your onboarding checklist. I asked, should we, would you like to list your house with me if we could agree on price? And they say, yes, we feel comfortable with you handling the sale. I said, great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to approach this much like a professional certified appraiser would do it. And we're going to choose 3 to 5 comparable properties that are similar to yours. And we're going to compare your house to that property to establish a value. So what I would do is I would go in to the search section with them. Now, this is not the CMA, by the way. This is not, this is me, what I do in lieu of a CMA. And what I say to the client is this: listen, you've heard of a CMA. Maybe some of my competitors have provided you with a CMA. They've made it look real pretty and fancy, and they send it over to you and all that good stuff. But I'm going to do something better than that. I'm going to provide you with, I'm going to go through the market analysis process with you one-on-one. So I share my screen with them, much like I'm sharing my screen with you right now. And then I simply say, let's go through this together to establish what you should put your home on the market for. And I will tell you that what I'm about to show you is incredibly powerful, very effective, and you can completely obliterate the competition. You have no competition when you do it this way. You know, my first manager, George Meservey, said to me, the best way to compete is don't compete. The best way to compete is don't compete. If everyone else is doing a CMA, you do this. If everyone's doing this, do a CMA. All right? So here's how it works. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what we're going to do is we're only going to choose sold properties. So I'm choosing sold because in an appraisal, they only use sold properties. I don't really care about what's on the market right now. We can look at that later to establish some competitive advantages if someone in your street is listing a property at a certain price. However, what's most important now is what has sold, because appraisers will only use sold properties. Someone could have a $500,000 home and ask $1 million for it if they want. You have a condo, so we're going to only look at condos. Or you have a single-family home, and it's an attached single-family home, so we're only going to look at attached single-family homes. Be specific, right? So let's say we're going to choose condos, sold. And by the way, I haven't done any pre-work on this. I'm just going to show you just how simple and easy it is. And I explain to the homeowners, listen, what we do is very simple, but it's hard work. So let me show you how we simply can arrive at the value of your property. I right-click on the Tools button, and I open that in a new tab. And I will go to Public Records, and I'll look up the address of the property. All right, here's a condo that I have under agreement. It's on West Street in Worcester. And so what I would do is 16 West Street. So I go into Public Record, I look up their property. And I pulled out the public record for it. This is Unit 3. This is the owner's name. You know, sometimes also what I'll do is I'll say, well, listen, you bought this she bought this in 2004. But if someone bought it like 3 years ago, and I say to them, you purchased this 3 or 4 years ago, the average price increase in Massachusetts has been anywhere from 3 to 5% per year. So if you bought it at a fair price at $200,000 or $1 million, whatever the price is, 3 years ago, at 5% increase per year, it's probably worth 15% more now than it was in what you bought it. So I'll do some rough math on my calculator and figure, like, based on appreciation, your property's worth this amount. But this isn't an accurate way of establishing value either. We still need to look at the comps. But this is one way to kind of give you a ballpark idea of what you could expect on the value of the property. If they say, hey, I got this place for a heck of a deal, I said, well, then great. It's probably worth a lot more than that then. If they say, oh, I overpaid for this property and I paid cash, well, then it's probably worth less than 15% more. It's pretty simple. So what I do is I say to them, I'm still on the computer. I said, look, you've got 1,089 square feet. It's a 4-room, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Is that accurate? And they'll say, yes. I say, okay, great. So what we'll do is we'll go in here. It's in the 01609 area. And the goal is to simply get to 3 or 4 properties that are in the area and find out what they sold for. And sometimes, I'm going to go back 6 months. However, appraisers typically only like to go back 3 months. However, I'm going to go way back to 6 months. I'm going to go back further in time. Okay. So now what we'll do here is we will put in the town, right? Because we need to compare an apple to an apple, not an apple to an orange. So we're going to say that it's in Worcester. So now what I found here is that there are 182 condos that have sold in Worcester in the last 6 months without putting in the zip code range or the area. So there's two different ways to get an area. You can put in a zip code and find everything that's sold in that zip code, or you can do a radius. In order to do a radius, you need to have the property street name and the zip code. You have to have all those things in there. So what's the address of this property? We talked about 16 West Street, right? So let's do like a radius, 01609. And let's say I only want to do a half-mile radius, 0.5. I hit the count button and see, oh, there are 17 properties. That's too many. Let's narrow down the radius. Let's say, so there's 10 properties, right? So out of these 10 properties, I want to narrow them down. And, you know, I could do things like this. I could say I want to see condos with 2 bedrooms. Narrows it down to 3. You know, you can play around with it. Interesting. So I'm going to take that out of there for now because I want to look at all 10 of them and pick from that list 3 to 4, 5. So narrow it down to a reasonable margin by entering in the search criteria to get it as close to their property as possible. Then I'm going to say review results. And I'll do this with them right on the phone, by the way. I'm hoping that someday MLS changes this where literally 3/4 of the page shows all this stuff and only 1/4 of the page actually shows your results. You can click on these buttons to shrink up what you're looking at, but it doesn't help much. And, you know, if I close the page to view it a smaller screen, I have a hard time even reading the font. So, but let's save our complaints for later. So here's a property right on West Street that's sold for $124,000. And here are some other condos, okay? And again, you want to try to choose a similar type property. Like a condo like this, you saw from the photo, this is a, you know, it's kind of like an apartment building style condo, not real comparable, lower square footage, you know. Listen, guys, here's a challenge right now. There aren't a lot of great comps out there. So you have to kind of pick and choose, and you're going to have to get a range of value in there, regardless of how you're doing this. You know, you just have to kind of wing it a little bit and to establish value. So what you do is you go through and you open up each property. And rather than me obsessing over the details of this particular property in CMA, because I could sit here for more time, I want to explain to you the concept and the strategy. And then you can spend more time on it, researching more data and more listings with the client. But here's the point that I want to make. I just simply go through this property and I say, okay, this one sold at $124,500. It was listed for $130,000. If it was worth $130,000, it would have sold for $130,000, but it didn't. It sold for $124,000. It sold within the last 6 months. It's literally right next door to you. And I go through this detail. I see here that it's 1,053 square feet, and we have 1,089 square feet, so the square footage is similar. Let's see, you have central air conditioning, they don't, so that's an advantage you have. The condo fee is similar. There are 6 units in the complex, you have 3, that doesn't make much of a difference. They don't have a garage, you don't have a garage. In terms of so they have a living room, dining room, kitchen, master bedroom, and that's it. So this is 1 bedroom, and you have 2 bedrooms, which certainly makes your property worth more. And so we go through and we look at how many days it was on the market. We see if it was underpriced or overpriced. We'll go through, we'll look at the condition of the property and see if it's similar. Now, this property, we'll look at the updates, right? Literally next door to the property. So what I asked the homeowners, I said, do you know anything about this property that would affect the value and all this good stuff? And she say yes or no, and we'll find other properties. So here's the question at the end of each comp. We simply say, do you feel like your property is worth less than this property or more than this property? So I think my property is worth more. And I say, okay, why? He said, well, because I have 2 bedrooms and mine is updated and I know they have issues with the management company and here's why and blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, great. Well, that's good to know. Now we know that it's worth more. So then we go to the next comp and we go through the pricing. Again, to adjust the size of the screen here. Here's one on Elm Street that sold for $140. And we go through them all and we say, okay, well, do we think it's worth $230? And we'll go through this and we'll say, okay, this has 4 rooms, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 fireplaces, no garage. And again, what you do is you just compare the property back and forth. Look at the history. It was on the market for 39 days. The other thing that I do is I always uncheck this box where it says the agent and office info. Just have your contact information on the page. You don't need your other agent's info in there. So here's a property, and they go, oh my gosh, yeah, look, I don't have that. I don't have that fireplace. I don't have that kind of kitchen. And they say, wow, this place is amazing. My property is definitely not worth this amount. I say, okay, well, we know that it's worth less money than that one. And you pick a range, and that's how you do it. So what I'm doing is I'm walking through the market analysis or the sold properties with them. And that's how I'm establishing the value of the property, is I'm going through it with them. And then I ask them to pick a price, and we agree on a price. I kind of guide them through the process of picking a price, and then they simply list the property. And I say, okay, well, let me send over the paperwork via .loop and get that signed, and that will trigger us ordering the photography for the property, and we'll get your home on the market within a week. And that's it. That's how I do the market analysis. Now, if you want to learn how to fill out the CMA and do the report and do the whole 9 yards, you can certainly do that. It's just not what I'm doing in this market right now. I think that, some people, some agents, some of us will try to complicate this process and make it, too scientific. And we don't have enough fact-based information in this market to establish an accurate value on a property. Appraisers are struggling with this now. I've met with appraisers out at properties, and they're like, geez, do you know anything about any property anywhere that's sold that I don't have access to help me establish the value of this property? It's a challenge right now. Okay, so one of the things that you need to share with your clients also is this chart right here. If you don't have a copy of this, let me know, and I can certainly send you a copy of this slide. I love this. It's in a PDF, and I just keep it on my desktop on my computer, and I share it with all my clients all the time. And it says, is your price on target? So here's the thing, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Based on our best guesses, we're going to choose a price for your home. Once we pick that price, we're going to put it on the market, and the market is going to determine the value of your property. So quite frankly, 30 years experience in the business and appraising properties and going through the value of properties and doing a market analysis on properties. And we're in a market right now where we're lacking data. So even an expert like myself cannot tell you exactly what your home is going to sell for. So what I explain to all my clients is that, listen, I can't tell you exactly what your house is going to sell for, but I can tell you what it's not going to sell for once we put it on the market. And they look at me kind of curious and say, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, it's very simple. We're going to pick a price based on some comps that we find that had sold recently and determine whether your house is similar, less than, or greater than the value of those properties that have sold. and we're going to put it on the market. And once we put it on the market, within 2 weeks, we're going to be able to determine what the value of your property is based on the feedback we're getting from the marketing. So here's how it works. It's very simple, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. If we're not getting any showings and people are just driving by, you're in the green area and you could be 12% or more overpriced. In 2 weeks from now, if your home is not getting any activity or not getting any inquiries, well, we know we need to adjust the property, the price range, or you might need to stage the property. I'm doing everything anyone could possibly do to effectively market the home, but if it's not selling, it's because of the price or the presentation. And most certainly it's always about the price. So now we go to the next section here. If you're getting a low number of showings, now what equates to a low number of showings? That might be 1 to 2 to 3 showings a week. That's a low number of showings in this low inventory market. The third option here is you have showings, but no offers. Now, when you're in the yellow, you're getting an average of 1 showing a day. So if your home's been on the market for 7 days or 14 days, if you haven't had 10 to 14 showings in 2 weeks, then you're in the orange. But if you have had that number of showings and you haven't had an offer, you're most certainly about 4 to 6% overpriced. So what we would need to do, we have 2 choices. Now, I'm going to be in real estate forever, so it doesn't matter to me, what you decide to do of these 1 or 2 choices, but here's what they are. Number 1, you need to wait more time for someone to come along who's new to the market, who hasn't seen your property yet, to make an offer on the property to buy it. Or number 2, you have to adjust the price. So you either need to wait more time, and if you're really overpriced and you want to wait, you might have to wait 1 to 7 years down the road. We might have to extend the length of the term of the listing agreement to 7 years in order for you to get your price for the price you want to get for the market to catch up to your price. Or you need to adjust your price to an area where it's going to cause your property to get an offer. So again, we're in 2020. We're heading into 2021, and the inventory is low and getting lower. So this is the advice I'm giving you during this market, during this time of low inventory. Now, if you're getting offers on the property within the first 2 weeks, now we have to look at what kind of offers are we getting. Are we getting all offers below your asking price? Are we getting them above your asking price? Are we getting them at your asking price? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the property's worth what a seller's willing to sell it for and what a buyer's willing to buy it for. That's what truly establishes fair market value. Now, once we get it under agreement, then we have to pass the appraisal process. So don't spend your money yet and don't celebrate yet, because just because I sold it for what could be perceived as higher than fair market value doesn't mean that the buyer is going to be able to get the financing. See, we have to sell the property 3 times. I have to sell it to the buyers, I have to sell it to the realtors, and then I have to sell it to the lenders. So it has to appraise. And so don't celebrate until after we get the appraisal in, because with my marketing and negotiating skills, I may end up getting a higher price than what a bank's willing to lend on it. And the appraiser is going to go back and look at, the similar properties and what they've sold for and come up with an analysis based on their criteria. And if it doesn't meet it, then we're going to have another conversation and perhaps renegotiate with the buyer. Maybe the buyer will come up and pay the difference. Maybe you'll meet halfway. Maybe you'll come down to the appraised value, and at least you got top dollar for your property. So those are going to be the options at that point. And that's how I handle value, and that's how I handle. And I will tell you from personal experience, homeowners are incredibly happy with this conversation. They feel very confident and very secure moving forward, listing with us and moving in this direction because it's real. To go in there and pretend that you have a crystal ball, it tears down the trust between you and your client because they know you don't have a crystal ball. Deep inside, they know that you don't know exactly what it's going to sell for. No one does. I heard a quote recently from one agent. They said, listen, I had a crystal ball, but it broke. So I don't know. my crystal ball is broken. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to sell for, but I can tell you what it won't sell for if we have it on the market for 2 to 4 weeks and we're not getting any offers. I can tell you it won't sell for that price, because in this market with low inventory, you should have an offer within 30 days. If you don't, you have a price problem, or you have a condition problem, or you've hired an agent who's not doing anything to market the home effectively. Okay, so those are your options. So if you want to know how to do a market analysis in detail, again, take the CMA classes, learn how to input them, learn how to create the report and all that good stuff. All that information is available to you. But I'm telling you, I don't use that process anymore. And when I'm out on a listing appointment, well, not out on a listing, well, when I'm on a listing appointment speaking to them over Zoom, I explained to them, I said, listen, some of my competitors may be providing you with a quote unquote CMA. And I tell them, I say, listen, we used to do it that way. But as professionals and expert in the industry, we don't do that anymore, because we're dealing with data from the past to try to predict the future, and that's not always accurate. So instead, what we're going to do is we're very simply going to share with you other properties that are similar to yours, see what they sold for, compare your property to each of those properties, determine a ballpark idea. I'm going to do this with you online so you can see and choose the price with me. And so you have the confidence of knowing that you haven't underpriced it and left money on the table, and you haven't overpriced it to cause your home property not to sell and just linger and sit on the market, which ultimately leads to less money in your pocket. So anyways, gang, this is how we're doing it. This is how to crush it right now in our industry. This is how to compete by not competing. Don't compete. If everyone's doing CMAs, don't do CMAs. Use this process instead. I'm telling you, it works. And I'm providing you this video to help you in your career and to help consumers out there as well. You know, this service of what I'm doing by creating this video is not just helping you, but it's also helping the consumers out there in real estate who are trying to get the most amount of money for their home and get it sold effectively. So if you have any questions about anything, please shoot me an email. It's John, John, at c21metrowest.com. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I look forward to helping you in any way I can, and have a fantastic day. Adios.